And welcome in to another episode of Tiger Territory, part of the Foul Territory Network, Detroit Tigers podcast. I'm Kieran Steckley. With me, as always, is a man who likes to take the stairs to stay level. He is Cody Stavenhagen. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm actually a huge proponent of taking the stairs, if at all possible. Getting a little steps, getting a little extra workout. Why are y'all taking the elevator? Come on.
I don't know, really side note, I know people don't care about this, but my father is an amputee, and there are a lot of people who take the elevator that do not need to take the elevator for one flight of stairs. All right, soapbox over. We can move on to some Tiger talk here. We are recording this shortly after a 2-4 loss to Minnesota that is following a 3-7 loss to Minnesota, obviously at Minnesota. And the Tigers are now 4-7. So Cody, I sometimes I do this exercise when we're gonna do like relative post game pods, which we don't do all the time, but like pretty immediate post game pods, and I kind of like want to jot down like my feelings about where the Tigers are at, and then kind of compare it to what happens in the game and whether it's one of those things that carries over or like is contradicting what I thought before the game. In this case, a lot of it is carrying over, so I feel okay kind of like presenting this as an overall theme. And that's when you're 4-7 to start, and again, it's 11 games. But when you're 4-7 to start, the way I kind of look at the way the team has played is the superpowers, maybe even like the team ethos and identity and like all these things that like we've become accustomed to following this team have just not played out to this point. And everything that we're going to be talking about is to this point. So I kind of jotted down like what are or what should this team's superpowers be? And this is in no particular order, but starting pitching, and obviously Seabolt is, and we witnessed him today, Seabolt is a part of what should be the superpower of this team, and obviously what is mostly the superpower of this team. The extra base thing, we've seen that is obviously still a part of the DNA of this squad. Defense, and not necessarily like excelling defensively, but smartly playing defense with positioning and scouting reports and all that stuff. Offensive upside, back end bullpen excellence, and using the whole bench. And as I list those out, Cody, it's kind of a mixed bag. It's kind of a mixed bag of what we've seen through 11 games. So I don't know if it necessarily means something, but part of the reason I like doing this podcast, part of the reason I like kind of taking notes on what's happening in the moment is because we can look, we document it, and then we see if it plays out. And some of this stuff is a problem. Some of this stuff is okay. There's not a whole lot of, this is actually going really well in a 4-7 start, and that's where we're at on Tuesday, April 7th, after a 4-7 start.
Yeah, I think, like, am I concerned about a 4-7 start? Not really. Probably the one thing that does have me concerned is, like, you got swept by a Diamondbacks team that I'm not sure. They might end up being pretty good. I'm not a huge fan of their pitching. I'm not a huge fan of that roster construction. You dropped a game you probably should have won to sweep the Cardinals, who might be in for a really rough year. You come out, you've already dropped 2 games in Minnesota to a Twins team that, in theory, is not going to be very good this year. Last year, you were, they started 2-5. You go to Los Angeles, you face the Dodgers. You go into Seattle, you face a really tough run of pitching. This year, you're off to a slow start, really against inferior competition. And that, I think, kind of goes back to what we're talking about, the fact that the Tigers aren't playing to their strengths or up to their capability. This team was at its best for 80 to 90 games last year when rarely did they play down to the opponent's level, when most of the time they were giving opponents nothing and forcing teams to play up to their level. where they had some killer instinct, where they were fundamentally impeccable, where they were really aggressive. We just have not seen much of that so far, so that does, like, maybe that's one of those sparks you can easily recapture, but again, I don't know, if you want to go back to last year, we're 3+ months into seeing just a kind of a different brand of baseball. The defense at times has been sloppy. The at-bat quality, I would say, has varied at best. Like, I don't know, Tarek Skubal was really good until his final inning tonight, but oddly enough, you're already, and your other loss in Skubal start was a 1-0 game, but you're already 1-2 and Tarek Skubal starts. You kind of need to win on Skubal days. Those are going to be your best chances. So there are certainly some things to worry about a little bit. I would like to see some swagger. I talked a lot this offseason about wanting to see some edge out of these guys. I thought that was kind of there, not like a certain level of confidence in spring training, but so far in the regular season, not seeing this team play with much edge.
You know, it's funny. I give you credit because you just said something that I actually had not considered because of the way that the postseason went last year. I hadn't even thought of, like, regular season carryover into now. And again, 11-game caveat. We all understand this. But, like, but when you play like this, you open up the door of being like, well, the, July on Tigers were closer to the May/April, however you want to define the first month of the season, into June Tigers. Like, that was the real one, the latter one. So, like, that, or I guess former, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, the latter in the season, Tigers were closer to the real Tigers, which would be, honestly, obviously, a problem. And there were certain things that were done in the offseason that, I was a believer in. I believe you were a believer in as well. That were supposed to kind of rectify some of that. Some of that was solidifying starting pitching with some guys that you already had. Fromber, who, for his part, excellent, in that element. Bringing in a Jansen, solidifying the back end of the bullpen. The McGonigal piece, obviously, is a key there. And for the record, Kevin McGonigal, obviously another fine day today at the plate.
He's playing with edge. He's playing with some swag. He's kind of the one guy. A little bit of Colt Keith. I would say a little bit of Dylan Dingler. Those are the guys who've been playing a pretty high quality brand of baseball so far.
Yeah, and maybe one of the, there's a universal truth to, like, this applies in football, and I'm curious whether you think this applies in baseball, where in football, early season games, sometimes you say, like, well, bad teams don't know they're bad until they're bad, right? Yeah. I like, you just laid out sort of the opponents that the Tigers have played, so far. Like, maybe there's an element of that where it's like nobody in Minnesota, nobody in St. Louis, nobody in Arizona, which again, well, I guess the jury's still a little bit out on them more so than the other two teams, but it, like, kind of knows their place yet, in a way. So if you're looking for excuses, reasons, that could be something. But I'll tell you, I guess I should have researched this. This would have been a little bit of time consuming, but it might have been worth it for this point. Was there an 11-game stretch, Cody, last year where the Tigers had 0 pinch hits?
Whew.
Like,
we got to get the research department on that, because that is actually pretty crazy. And I know we talked about that a lot our last episode, and some people are still mad at AJ Hinch for pinch hitting. I don't think I don't think he's going to stop doing it, all right? And I don't think he should stop doing it, but that is, you want to talk about not playing to their strengths. Some of this team is designed to do, and either it just hasn't worked out or they haven't had guys come through in those opportunities. Sure, that is concerning. The reason AJ Hinch does this is because, in theory, it's supposed to work more often than not, and I would venture to guess it probably will start working. It's still a very small sample. Pinch hit at bats are actually kind of as random as you can get I'm talking about in a very small sample like this. But yeah, that's not great, right? That goes against what we believe to be the DNA of this Tigers team.
And speaking of DNA, we're going to get to here in a second about the watchability of this team and how it compares to the national perspective on that. But first, I got to tell you guys about our friends at SeatGeek. You know what I'm excited for, Cody? I am excited for the Tigers' first pinch hit. And if you want to see that among a lot of other great events, you got to go to SeatGeek. With over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than, get this, 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. We got NBA postseason is right around the corner. I know you guys are going to want to see the Pistons go far into the playoffs. And it's still spring, but summer's almost here. World Cup tickets are on SeatGeek. We're still looking for, as much as we love watching Kevin McGonigal hit the baseball, we're still waiting for his first home run. Don't you want to be there to see Kevin McGonigal's first home run? You can do that with SeatGeek. SeatGeek has your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. So look for green dots. Green means good, red means bad. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And of course, I have a code for you guys. You can use code Territory10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek. All right, so ESPN today, Tuesday, did a ranking of all MLB teams on their watchability, and they had their own formula. And I'm not gonna rehash everything that they did, but the Tigers placed 9th, which is actually about where I thought they would be. And some of the reasoning was why they, for a team that made it to the Final Four in their in their league back-to-back years, you would think it might be the Skubal element. You think it might be a little bit higher, but AJ likes the bullpen. They don't steal a lot of bases. They don't hit a lot of home runs, and and overall, it's up until McGonigal, there wasn't a young hot shot that you just got to see or whatever. So this could change, and maybe Max Clark, whom we'll talk about here a little bit later, might change some of that. But at the same time, Cody, the Tigers are at their best when they actually are a little bit more exciting. I think the extra base element is really exciting. I think having Will Vest on the mound in crucial situations is very exciting. And the offensive upside is something that is fun to watch when Riley Green is on, when a torque bomb. I think that's pretty watchable. I don't know, maybe I'm biased. And then the Colt Keith element could be one of the, if we're being fair, one of the storylines of the early parts of the season, one of the big breakout players of the American League. So not only are they so on a actual standings basis underperforming because you're 4-7, but I don't think they're that as watchable as they were projected to be right now. So it's a double. It's an aesthetic and a real life detriment for the team right now.
Yeah, I'm actually, I guess I'm not surprised that low. Especially, yeah, it's harder to defend that given that they're 4-7. But in addition to all the things you just laid out, they do have more star power than they've had in a long, long time. And I guess Verlander being on the IL doesn't help that. But if you assume at some point Verlander is going to be healthy, Skubal is kind of must-see TV. I feel like Fromber is almost underrated in a way, but that guy's pretty fun to watch. You have Kenley Jansen chasing, saves milestones. Even maybe Riley Green is the most electrifying player of all time, but he's a 2-time All-Star. He's a name people know. Javi Baez is a name people know and is very popular. I will say, something about the Tigers brand, and I think through some of those additions, and of course McGonigal has started to, maybe this means nothing, but I'm getting people from different periods of my life just texting me during random Tigers games so far this season. And pretty much that has never happened before. For whatever reason, when people are scrolling through games to watch, they're clicking on that Tigers game a little more often than they used to. If this team gets rolling a little bit, I think they have a case to be higher than 9th for sure.
Yeah, and and you mentioned Riley Green. Riley Green is still like a highlight reel waiting to happen. You know what I mean? That's an element. And then this doesn't probably do much for TV, quote unquote, watchability. But I do feel like if you are just like a baseball fiend, I don't know how you could not be riveted with AJ Hinch in the way that he operates a game. You know what I mean? From even just from the lineup standpoint and from the pitching standpoint and the pinch hitting standpoint, like that kind of stuff like ought to be it sparks reactions from the fans, right? like
say,
the
I mean,
Tigers fans. So it to me feels watchable. That that to me feels watchable.
It's not for the casuals, which is probably part of the reason there's so much pushback sometimes. But yeah, if you're looking to nerd out, man, watching AJ Hinch's brand of baseball is a good way to go about it. I mean, sometimes like I really am grateful in a way for covering AJ and how my perspective on certain things have changed and some of the things I've learned. I'll be talking to other baseball writers who are incredibly knowledgeable, maybe sometimes just about other situations, and like I have to kind of show them like, no, this is why that has happened. I'm not saying like there's certainly writers out there who know a lot more than I do still, but I've realized I'm seeing the game in a different way, and it's okay. Like, not everyone has to agree with every decision or agree with every opinion I have, but like, the Tigers play a smart, different brand of baseball. So if you're looking to really nerd out on strategy, they certainly cater to that crowd.
Yeah, and then if you're into front office strategy, the Tigers obviously give you ample ample stuff to analyze. And one of the guys, and this is, obviously I was absent from this podcast for the first part of the season, so I don't want you to repeat anything, but like we haven't had a chance to talk about it. We saw a lot of Connor Seabolt today, Cody, and as I'm looking at his stats right here, he's over 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, hasn't allowed an earned run. What do we make of sort of like the last piece of the roster puzzle, like coming into spring training? Because again, that was, if you want to talk about nerding out, like that was something that the Tigers had to like make some structural changes to their roster in order to bring him on, and they've used him. They have definitely used him so far.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of this guy still, and I did talk about this with Raj. I pulled up his Stuff Plus ratings, which have already kind of regressed to still average to slightly above average. He has walked 3 guys, had some other counts gone on longer than I would have liked to see. I like when that velo's sitting 94, 95, even 96, a lot more than when it's 93. But he's done some things, like every now and then he throws, the slider or maybe even the fastball when he gets the right, like, approach angle, and it's like, okay, this is pretty nasty. Like, I see why the models like him. I see even some of what the Tigers must see in him. He hasn't allowed an earned run, so, hey, from that standpoint, going as well as you could ask. I feel like there have been a couple of these outings, even the most recent one in Minnesota, that was runners were on base. It was like kind of teetering to like, okay, this could get ugly in a hurry, but that hasn't happened, which maybe is a testament to him being able to lock down and pitch with runners on base. The too long didn't read version of that is like, I don't know, some interesting things, but I want to see a lot more of this guy before really feeling confident in my opinion.
That statement that you just said right there might be somewhat of a theme we're gonna have here for the next couple of weeks. Is like I'd like to see some.
We're 11 games in, baby. That probably should be what we're saying.
Because like there's if we were gonna do checkpoints, and we're not actually doing that right now, so I don't want to like misconstrue sort of like the exercise here. But one of the players under the microscope coming into the season was Parker Meadows, and then sort of like the fallout from there. And if you wanna do just the box score check thing, Parker Meadows is right now clocking in at a 267 average. If Parker Meadows can hit, we'll just throw it down to 250. If Parker Meadows can hit 250, in theory, this should solve a lot of like questions and puzzles and conundrums that the Tigers have, and like and makes that lineup that much deeper, because obviously we know the defense and what he can do with his legs and all that stuff. And the reason I mentioned that is because Max Clark, who was mentioned in that ESPN little blurb about the watchability, is that like if Max Clark comes up, and it was sort of like with the assumption that he would be like the everyday center fielder in that particular situation, would make the team more watchable, which I think anybody who remembers, I don't know, just a couple months ago in spring training, it was definitely watchable, Max Clark in spring training. But to his credit, and we're going to talk about things that have didn't go his way, he has gone to Toledo and he's just balled. I think I saw he's got like a 9-game on base streak. He's got like a hit safely streak of 7 games. He made a diving catch on a sinking line drive in front of him today in Toledo, which is not the easiest thing to do in center field. And he was wearing the chains. He had a turtleneck on, but you could still tell that the chains were there. And so I think it might be a good time to say, like, are we on Max Clark watch, Cody? With this soon into the season, with Parker Meadows batting 267 and Max Clark just basically doing everything for Toledo right now. So to his credit, I think we got to say he at the very least, the the tales of his of his demise have been exaggerated. I think we could safely say that about Max Clark.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. That goes back to like, it's kind of overreacting to a bad spring training from a young kid in his first big league camp. Like, that happens sometimes, for better or for worse. I also don't think we should be on Max Clark watch. I think it is far, far too early for that. Kudos to Max Clark for going down. You want to make a good impression? You want to spark some of these conversations? Going and posting a 1,000 plus OPS and making some highlight plays in the field is a good way to get that going. I think it became pretty clear, like, look, Clark's just a guy who's probably going to need some time in AAA. There's some things to smooth out. You want to be real sure he can be a plus center fielder in the major leagues whenever that time comes. I don't think he's going to be up here really anytime soon. When he actually gets up to the major leagues, I do think is an interesting question, to your point. Like, how much of that depends on Parker Meadows or the Tigers' general status in center field? I'm not sure. Maybe a lot. If Parker Meadows is playing well, then he's gotten some hits. I think he has one barrel. I'd like to see him drive the ball a little more, but the strikeout rate has been stable, so that's a huge plus for him. If Parker Meadows is playing well, I think the Tigers are going to be content to just take their time with Max Clark, maybe try to preserve that rookie eligibility, which would be not seeing him until late August, if at all, this year. But if Parker Meadows is playing poorly, and you try some Javi Baez in center, and that doesn't work out, and either Matt Vierling doesn't get going, or you got to use Matt Vierling elsewhere, and you have a good team that you feel like can make a World Series push, maybe there's a world in which he could come up this summer. I think that's an interesting debate, and would get us to spark the whole service time and rookie eligibility conversation all over again, although in somewhat of a different light than the Kevin McGonigal conversation. So, yeah, I'm going to say let's just give this one a little more time.
Well, one piece that you didn't mention there, Cody, was one Wenzel Perez, who
Great call out, yeah.
For his part, and again, sometimes it's not always like a credit business doing the podcast, but like sometimes I do feel like it is worthy to give guys credit in specific situations. And tough spring, Wenzel has been a key cog. In fact, I just randomly, just circulated on Twitter the final out of the 2024 playoff clincher. Who catches the ball?
Yeah.
Wenzel Perez. You know, and so like a key member of the team the past couple of years, and a guy who was hurt last year and came back from injury. 263. He's got let's see, looking at it, he's got 2 home runs in AAA. Like he's getting to the point, Cody, where I'm sure they gave him specific things to work on, and like that you're just not going to see in the box score or whatever. But if this goes for another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, and anything above that, certainly, then I'm going to start thinking, are we wasting away Wenzel Perez time in Toledo when he could potentially help in Detroit? And so, like, if there's a Parker Meadows conversation, which again, to his credit, we're not there yet. We're just like playing out all the hypotheticals here. Wenzel Perez is a guy who like can play center field, has played center field. Might he be that? And might he also be part of it, whether it's the 40-man part of it, whether it's the service time element with Max Clark? Might he be somebody who, just by kind of the nature of structurally how these things work, might actually be higher on the call-up, the metaphorical call-up sheet? You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. I think we'll see Wenzel Perez fairly soon. It's just a matter of which is going to happen first. Someone's going to pull a hammy running the bases, or someone's slow start is going to get to the point where they need a deeper reset. I think you're right. We're probably, if we're talking reset for somebody, we're probably talking 2 to 3 more weeks at the minimum before it's going to get to that point, and that's far enough in advance. I don't even really want to speculate on who that would be. We all know there are a few guys who are either A, off to a slow start, or B, just not playing that much. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if there's unfortunately just someone gets hurt before then, and then Wenzel is probably going to be the guy up. But I do think we will see him. He's stung some balls with triple-digit exit velocities down in Toledo, and he's a good player, as AJ Hinch said. Like, he's still going to be part of this team. When he does get up here, maybe he can provide a little bit of a spark. He's done it before.
Yeah, and obviously injuries will happen, and illnesses will happen, and looks like Kerry Carpenter, I mean, obviously he pinch hit today, so hopefully like he's okay, but like those kind of little things are like a reminder of just like how fickle some of this stuff can be, and like somebody could get an opportunity that when you least expect it, I guess.
Jahmai
right.
Jones is 0 for 8. Are you cutting him now?
Is it too late to rescind the J-Hen trade? Is it too late?
We've talked about this before. Like, Jahmai Jones has the toughest job on the team, and he has been put in some big situations. AJ Hinch pinch hit for him again in a big spot, and he hit a deep fly out. He did stay in to face a righty, which I don't love, and I feel like AJ was able to manage around that last year a good bit. Jahmai had like 25 at-bats against righties. He actually had a 797 OPS against righties, although no home runs. But anyway, he got that at-bat because, again, it was the biggest at-bat of the game. Putting him in the middle innings with runners on base, AJ was willing to take a shot there and live with the fact that might mean Jahmai is up again against a right-handed pitcher in the 8th or the 9th. 0 for 8 sporadic at bats. I'm not that worried about it. Kerry Carpenter started 0 for 11, and we were all freaking out, and now people don't want to see him leave the game. So, like, again, we did talk about Jahmai in spring training because he is the most limited chess piece, for lack of a better phrase. He probably might not have the longest leash, and he has the hardest job. So I think it's way too soon
right there,
to react or to overreact or say he's got to be off the roster. But he is, he has some factors that kind of work against him a little bit. And in a way, he does have to come in and get a pinch hit at bat, a pinch hit at some point, because that is his job, albeit a very tough job. So that's kind of how I see the two different sides of the Jahmai Jones conversation here.
Yeah, and like and sometimes I'm like, and I'll admit this, sometimes I'm like this to a fault. That I'm a believer that if you have a plan, whether it's a macro or a micro plan, you kind of have to let it play out to some sort of either statistical like like threshold, or like to the extent that you feel comfortable that if you have to pivot, that you gave it the fullest extent of possibility of working out. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
like Parker falls into that category, and I feel like we've talked about Parker a little bit, like I don't want to say too much, but just the general notion of we know how far that can fall if it does go down. And so I feel like we might be, and I say we, mainly me, because I keep bringing him up.
Oh, he's getting some
You know,
hits. Come on.
yeah, but like but like you have to let these things play out, in my opinion. And if you're gonna have Jahmai Jones on the roster with this very limited, very tough, very high leverage role, you have to give him room to
Yeah.
do what he's designed to do. You know what I mean? Otherwise, don't carry him on the damn roster. You
I
see what
have
I'm
a
saying?
feeling AJ Hinch and probably Scott Harris as well would agree with you.
So yeah, like everything everything feels big in the moment. That's because he's only in big moments.
Right.
Let's Jahmai Jones is like, yeah, I'd love I'd love to just bat in the top of the second inning when it's 0-0 and no runners on base, and I just kind of do like the whole thing. But that's not the role, that's not the gig. And if you're gonna have him here, you have to utilize him and give him enough room to succeed, because that's why he's here. And there's a couple guys on this team. That's how you structured the roster. So no major decisions ought to be made, obviously, on April 7th, April 8th, April 9th. You know what I mean? So that certainly applies to some guys on in the bullpen. We didn't talk as much about the bullpen today, but that certainly applies to some of these guys in the bullpen, where it's like over the course of a larger sample size, you believe you structured this team for these guys to have success in these advantageous situations. You can't be overreacting so far. But to bring it all back to the beginning, you are 4-7. You have not played to your capability, and I'm not even necessarily talking about the record, but just like the way you got to 4-7 is certainly not playing to your capability, nor to your style, to your brand, to your to your culture in some facets. Too many gaps that you just don't expect from a Scott Harris, AJ Hinch, more veteran team than they've had in a long time squad. So those things will have to be corrected. I'm sure they will be, but as we sit and we talk here right now, like they do have to be corrected. I think that is fair to say.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that kind of goes back to how we started this episode and sums up the whole thing. Like, am I concerned about the Tigers? No. I think they're a pretty good team. I think at worst they're a pretty good team, and I think they have the capability to be a very good to great team. I'm a little concerned we're not seeing more signs of what the old gritty Tigers brand. I'd like to start seeing some of that soon.
Yeah. See some more signs. That's the call to action right there. See some more signs. That's what we like to see. All right, we're gonna wrap up here. You guys can follow us at Cody Stavenhagen. I'm at Kieran _Steckley at Tiger Territory _. Be on the lookout. We'll have a mailbag here in the next, not exactly sure what day, but in about a week. Within. So be on the lookout on socials, and you can obviously comment on YouTube at Tiger Territory. And we'll get to your questions. We have some already that are pretty thought provoking. So looking forward to doing that. And TigerTerritoryShop.com for all your Tiger Territory merch needs. So for Cody Stavenhagen, I'm Kieran Steckley. Everybody have a great day.